The Birkin is not just a bag, it is a ritual, a story, a promise, the physical expression of a very particular trust between a house and its buyer. So when that trust becomes the center of a courtroom drama, the argument is never only legal, it is psychological, cultural, and deeply revealing about what luxury means right now. Today, we unpack the Hermès Birkin lawsuit, the facts, the feelings, and the larger meaning. We'll explain why a California judge ruled in Hermès's favor, why the plaintiffs have appealed to the Ninth Circuit, and what all of this tells us about buying, belonging, and what luxury houses think they owe their clients. This is GTWJ, thoughtful, precise, and exquisitely curious. Follow us on Instagram at GTWJMag. At the heart of this case are three customers who felt they were asked to play a game they didn't consent to. They say the house conditioned access to the Birkin, that purchasing other Hermès pieces was, in practice, a precondition for the chance to be offered a Birkin. Their complaint argued that this hidden ladder of spending and relationships created an unfair marketplace, one that inflated prices and left ordinary customers out of the loop. Those claims were serious. If proven, they would challenge how prestige is packaged and sold in necklaces of purchase history. But the courtroom is not the same as the comment section. In September 2025, US District Judge James Donato dismissed the plaintiffs' federal antitrust claims, concluding that the complaint failed to define a proper market and to allege that Hermes had the kind of market power required under antitrust law. In plain language, the judge said that being exclusive and favoring top clients isn't automatically a crime. The court framed the matter as consumer disappointment, not proof of an illegal restraint of trade. That dismissal, carried out with legal reasoning about market definitions and competition, is what for now gave Hermes the headline, "Hermes wins." Just your law. Still, headlines cannot capture the nuance. The plaintiffs did not walk away. They filed notice of appeal to the Ninth Circuit and are seeking to reframe their argument. On appeal, they're basically asking the higher court to reconsider whether the district court applied the law correctly to a market that is, by definition, rarefied and unique. In other words, can there be a relevant antitrust market for elitist luxury handbags? And if so, did Hermes use its dominance in that market to steer buyers to other Hermes products? The Ninth Circuit will be asked to decide whether the district court set too high a bar when it required traditional market power evidence in a world of ultra-luxury scarcity. Why does this legal technicality matter beyond the courtroom? Because the case forces us to interrogate what exclusivity really is. Luxury houses like Hermes historically managed scarcity through ritual, invitations, relationships, in-store rapport, and long client histories. That system works because customers accept, even cherish, that belonging is earned, not bought in a single click. But that very ritual creates opacity. When access is opaque, consumers feel they are in a system that can be gamed, and resentment grows. The plaintiff's claim reads like a consumer grievance grown up into a legal theory. We were told to spend and were not rewarded with access. That feeling created the social energy that pushed this case into court. Hermes's legal defense is straightforward. The Birkin lives in a competitive luxury market, and being selective about whom to offer a Birkin does not equal illegal tying or coercion. The house argued that customers have choices and that sales strategies built around loyalty are a business prerogative, not a Sherman Act violation. The district court agreed. Exclusivity in itself does not equal market power that harms competition. Legally, the burden for plaintiffs is to show market-level harm, not merely individual disappointment. That distinction, competition versus consumer choice, is the hinge that closed the door in the lower court. Let's be honest and ask the question our commenters are already whispering. Does winning in court mean Hermes is morally clean? Of course not. Courts decide law, not taste. The public ledger cares as much about perception as jurisprudence. Even if the legal standard is not met, the reputational argument remains. When customers feel coaxed into buying invisibly high amounts of ancillary products, even without direct proof of coercion, the trust between brand and buyer frays. That trust is the real currency in prestige houses, and it can be damaged more quickly than it can be legally repaired. There's also a structural lesson here for luxury business models. The Birkin is valuable because of scarcity plus storytelling, craftsmanship, waiting, and the idea that access is a relationship. But that model sits uneasily in an era of transparency. Shoppers tweet, compare and share receipts. The internet witnesses what used to be secret. So houses have three choices: modernize and risk alienating old guard buyers, double down on ritual and risk seeming archaic, or reconfigure distribution in ways that keep both worlds partly satisfied. Hermes, by vigorously defending its practices in court, is signaling a commitment to ritual. Yet the very need for public legal defense suggests the model's sustainability is under pressure. What about resale and the aftermarket? This case also shines light on how secondary markets feed the myth. Birkins appreciate because they are scarce and coveted. If the primary market were perceived as manipulated, the secondary market's legitimacy becomes paradoxical. Collectors both fuel and distrust the system. A buyer who feels excluded from primary access may turn to secondary channels, which inflates prices and further cements scarcity as value. Courts, however, want hard economic harm, not cultural grievance. That mismatch is why the plaintiff's road is hard but not impossible. They must translate emotion into legal fact. Psychologically, we should separate desire from dignity. Customers desire Birkins not only for status, but because of what the bag signifies: permanence, patience, and belonging. When the ritual breaks, the purchase can feel transactional and hollow. That's why the plaintiff's narrative resonated outside courtrooms. It tapped into a broader unease about what luxury should be. For many, luxury is no longer merely a commodity. It is a moral contract between maker and owner. When that contract is perceived to be broken, even if the law disagrees, social judgment follows. Now imagine what the Ninth Circuit could do. Appellate courts are not fact finders. They review whether the law was applied correctly. If the appeals court finds that the district court put too narrow a filter on what constitutes a market in the luxury context, it could send the case back or remand for further factual development. That wouldn't automatically mean Hermes loses, but it would force both sides to litigate harder about how to measure market power in spaces where scarcity is the business model. The result would be consequential for every house that trades in rarity. So what should collectors, aspirational buyers and industry watchers take from this? First, procedural wins are not reputational immunity. Hermes may have won at the district court level, but the conversation this lawsuit has started won't evaporate because of a single ruling. Second, brands that depend on ritual must pay attention to perception. Legal defenses can succeed, but customer trust is built in boutiques, not courtrooms. Third, the modern luxury buyer wants both story and clarity. Houses that learn to balance ritual and reasonable transparency will be the ones that endure. To close, this case is not simply about handbags. It is a mirror held up to the entire industry. How do heritage maisons steward their myths in an age that demands explanation? The Hermes ruling is a legal snapshot, but the narrative is ongoing. Whether you see Hermes as vindicated or merely insulated, one thing is clear. The value of luxury will increasingly be tested not just in ateliers and showrooms, but in public forums where law, culture, and consumer psychology meet. If you loved this deep take, follow us on Instagram at GTWJMag and join the conversation. Do you think brands should be more transparent about how they allocate Birkins? Would transparency erode the magic or preserve the long game? We read every comment and we respond. Stay curious, beautiful, and exacting.